Welcome back, everyone. This is the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage, making one of the last of a long series of videos on the Singer 301, using this as a machine to demonstrate restoration techniques, things that I do. What you are looking at is one of the last things we're going to do, but it's not unimportant. What are you looking at? This, of course, is the inside of the drip pan that you saw me take off the 301 when we started this little restoration series of videos. And what you are seeing is what I believe to be the original felt that was installed by Singer. Now, this felt was installed and it was put in, you'll see little clip areas where it was kind of attached. And it's, it's pretty soaked. It's got dust on it, but it has old oil. And we're going to remove this. Again, you may, if you ever buy a machine that's been overhauled, you don't know if this has ever been done. It's not difficult. It's not expensive. What are you going to need? Well, that's the sound of me rambling through my toolbox. What you want is some form of contact cement. There are different adhesives you could use. This is what I use, and it's proven to work. This one says Duco cement. I've got this one at Michael's Crafts. This one is Testers. It's not rubber cement. That's a different product. This is contact cement, and it is used for, it's an old school glue. It stinks, so you want to be in a very well ventilated area when you use it. Now, what else are you going to need? You're going to need scissors. You're going to need a magic marker or a piece of chalk. And here's a piece of felt that I have. You can use whatever color you like. I believe Singer used everything from black to dark green to brown, depending on the model that had a drip pan. And you're going to need something that has kind of a flat edge because our goal is to remove this but not to tear it, or to tear it as little as possible. Why? Because we're going to use this as a template to create our new felt. Now, if you have a featherweight, you can order pre-cut drip felts, oil felts. I haven't found any for the 301, but it's not a big deal because I've only ever had one or two Singers that were missing their felt. They usually had it, and it usually looked like that. So what are we going to do? We're going to look for loose areas. Sometimes you get lucky and this felt pad is very loose and it will want to plop right off, and at other times you may have to work a bit. Now, you saw what I did here. I just came around. Because it's so oil soaked, whatever adhesive was on it years ago has failed. Now, sometimes this will tear, and what you'll find is you'll get this whole piece off, but these areas where it was attached, you might get little clumps that are stuck there. You can get those off, but you want to keep this, mainly keep your outlines if you can, because again, we want to be able to, this is going well. Maybe this pad knew I was making a video today. Sometimes they're a little more stubborn to get off. We'll come around here. And again, you want to watch your edges. Those typically tear. This one did not, thank you. But they can. Don't get dissuaded if they tear though. You can guesstimate what the pattern of this will be. But I'm getting gravy today. This is working really well. Maybe I shouldn't speak too soon. We're not done. Let's see. Again, loosening the felt. Something flat there. Boy, that worked out well. Sometimes it works well and sometimes it fights with you, but no worries. Oh, I've got one. If I'm pulling, notice I'm pulling and it's still tight here. I want to come back. Don't fight it or it'll tear on you. It might tear anyway, but I'm going to take this little, there we go. I got it loose. Now you can see, these little, it's like a crimping that they put in the pan, and you'll see a couple of areas where the original pad, it hung on to those crimps, but that's okay. We've got our shape. I'm not worried about those little holes that were left. And what we're going to do is we're going to remove what's left here, and then I'm going to clean it with like a alcohol detergent mix to get all that oil off, or you can just use rubbing alcohol alone should take care of it. And then I'll show you, it's really pretty easy. We're going to make a template on the new felt, and then we're going to get the new felt glued onto the pan. And that's pretty much it. So hold on, we're going to get our cleaning materials and we'll get this cleaned up. Okay guys, I've gotten everything positioned here. What are we going to do? We're going to take, I've just got one of my little cleaning tools here, and I'm just going to go in and remove the remnants of the old pad. Again, they come off in this case fairly easily. Again, there's a piece of metal that's crimped it, and it was done in the factory, and so it, you know, it's sort of hanging on here a little bit. They mostly just kind of disintegrate at this point in the history of the machine because they have oil. I don't know what they were made from. Again, this is 1951. They could have been made from actual wool felt. I don't know if circa 1951 if they were using, you know, polyester felt. I'm not entirely convinced that they had that. So it might have actually been wool. Felt is easy to find. These little felt sheets of felt like I showed you that we're going to be putting on here. You can get them in most craft stores. Depending on where you live, you know, there are different chains of craft stores. There's AC Moore, you can get them in fabric stores like Joann's Fabrics, Michael's Arts and Crafts, or what have you. If they have a sewing or craft section, they often will have these, and they're not expensive. I think one piece of felt is like, I don't know, $1, less than that sometimes, depends on where you are. Point is, you should not have to order that online unless you want to. There's an advantage of getting certain things online, but sometimes it's nice just to go to the store and pick it up and be done with it instead of having to track it. Other times you may want things purchased online. Some things I have to get online. If I want Oregon brand needles, the stores don't carry those, at least where I'm at. And so here you see me just kind of just picking at this, wanting to get it, get as much of this out as we can. Again, you know, the client that will purchase this machine, you know, they're never going to see all of this. I mean, technically, you could clean this pan and just glue on the new piece and be done with it. But again, I can't help but want to do it the right way. And this is a hobby. So again, I'm able to take my time, enjoy the process. I know that when the machine is ready, the client's getting a machine that's truly been gone through, even to the level of removing old oil felts. And many people don't even know these have oil felts unless they take the pan off. And they're not always sure what it was for. Of course, as I mentioned in other videos, this was useful because when people oil their machines, especially for a machine that was designed to be portable, they didn't want to make a mess. You know, you didn't want to let's say you were at a friend or relative's house and you had your machine, oh, my machine needs to be oiled. You don't want to drip oil all over their beautiful rugs or whatever kind of flooring they had. So it's coming out here. I'm getting the old remnants of this felt off. And okay. Again, if you have a tiny little bit left there that won't come out, it's okay. We just want to get as much off as we can because this old felt holds oil, right? Okay, so now what am I going to do? I'm going to take my lint brush and just kind of go over it, make sure I've gotten anything loose off of here. Next step is to clean, and in the spirit of waste not, want not, these are old layers of fabric where I've done test sewing in the past. And I always save these because they make kind of good cleaning rags sometimes. And I do enough of these machines that I go through a lot of this stuff. So I'm going to take, I'm not going to pour alcohol on anything. I'm too respectful of alcohol to go pouring it. But I'm going to take this old rag and I'm going to come over it. And what am I getting? I'm getting old oil, any of the remnants of that old, of the old felt off. And again, this is one swipe at this, right? That's just one, and you can see what came off. We're not done. We want to do it again. We want to do it several times because if you ever read the labels on the back of a can of paint or the directions on things like glue and adhesives, the last thing you want is grease or oil on the surface of what you're trying to glue, because those products they can't do what they're supposed to do in the presence of grease and oil. It totally throws the whole thing off. So let's see, I think I've got one more clean area on this rag. So again, it's kind of ironic, but some of the most important things that I use when cleaning machines are cotton swabs and rubbing alcohol. So most of the stuff that I talk about in these videos, the things that I use, you can find, they're easy to find. Occasionally you might have something that's kind of an esoteric thing that you have to order online. You know, that can happen, but when you consider how old many of these machines are, and the fact that we're able to restore them back to, you know, like new or close to factory specifications, it's pretty amazing how very little we have to buy that's hard to get. Okay, so that little rag is gone. Now, I'm not done. I want to take this little white sewing test sample of mine, and I'm going to go back again. Again, I know this seems like I'm kind of going overboard, but again, you know, I once had a training class in a job I had where I had to learn how paint worked, how paint cured and dried. I'm not kidding you. I had to take a class on how paint dries. And one of the things you learn is that it doesn't take much oil or dirt or grease to really mess up paint. And the same thing applies to glue, because glue and paint, they're not the same, but they can be impacted by a lot of the same conditions. You can see what came off there. So I'll go ahead while the alcohol's still wet. We're going to wipe it. And I think we're good here. I think we've gotten everything off that we needed. Okay, that's going to dry quickly because it's 91% rubbing alcohol. And our next step is to get our new felt traced and cut out. Let's take a look. Okay, everyone, now we are getting ready to create the new drip felt for the pan. And again, this is it's not expensive to do, and it's pretty quick. As you can see, I've already cleaned off the old one and didn't take much time. I'm going to line this up with the straight edge of my new felt sample, and I've lined it up over here. It just makes it a little bit less edge that I need to, there's the label off the felt, that I need to cut. And I'm just going to use here, in my case, a Sharpie. You don't need a Sharpie. It could be any marker. Sewing chalk is a very good thing to use. I don't have any amount of chalk. I've got to get some more. And this would especially be helpful if you have black felt. It's going to be tough to see anything other than maybe a light sewing chalk. So anyway, I'm just going to take the Sharpie and just basically tracing around. Some people trace with paper, but in this case, I really don't think you need to. All you need to do is trace the actual felt. Make sure it doesn't move or wiggle when you're tracing it, obviously. And then, of course, I want to trace this big circle inside that's going to be cut out. Now, I'm going to be cutting on the inside of that marking line. Otherwise, I'll have a piece that's a little too large. And that'll be our next step. So you can see, and the dust here was stuck to this pad, so it didn't really get on the new one at all. And there's our template for the new one. Let's see here. One of the things that's really interesting when you're looking at restoring anything, a lot of the times these techniques are, you know, you only have to do this once. That pad, that old pad was on there for, I think it's the original from 1951. Let's change the angle a little bit here. From 1951. And again, this is going to last a long time. You should never be oiling your machine so much that you're creating a big mess under it. That old oil pad was, you know, it was soaked, but that was 70 years worth of sewing machine oil. And I think this is a large piece that I got in a sewing store. I think I got it in a sewing fabric store. I think this piece cost me $1.75 or something. And again, this is This is not something you're going to have to do. You should never have to do it again if you do it. But it is nice to be able to restore your machine. You know, I could have removed the pan felt, the old one that you saw, and I could have just taken it, cleaned it, and called it a day. But again, if I'm restoring a machine and my client's going to pay for that, then I think that they should get something other than, you know, what a lot of repair places will just, you know, they'll clean out the lint, they'll put some oil in it, adjust it, and call it, and then they'll charge people $150, $175 or more to do that. Now, I'm going to get into the center here so I can get that circle cut out. And I think I'm going to start this with a, what is this? Forget the brand. It is, just a sharp bladed knife. You could use your scissors. You could just get something started on the inside and use the scissors. I've done that too. And here again, you can choose the color you want. You can choose black, brown, green. You can put whatever color you want. It's not something that's ever going to really show. So it's not so much about aesthetics as it is, you know, if you don't see the color you want, but you want to do it, just do it and get it done, because it's really about catching. Okay, I'm going to come to the center here so I can get a little deeper. And I don't want to drive in too deep with that knife, so I think I'm just going to use that to get me started. And I'll use my scissors. And I'll come over here to the edge and just get my inner circle cut. My inner circle cut out. And you can see, you know, this is not a daunting project. This is probably one of the simpler procedures for overhauling a machine. Many sewing machines don't have these. It's only Singer's that I can recall. There may have been a few others. I think some of the later machines from Japan may have had them. But so that is the new felt for the pan. Let's see how it lines up. See how I did. Or didn't. Okay. Now, that's not too bad. She fits rather snugly. Now, if you ever cut this, if you cut it slightly, like we want to take that little corner there off. If you ever cut it slightly too small, that's okay. And if you cut it too large, you can just trim it. Again, you want it to be as flush as possible, but it's not. Again, it doesn't need to be exact. It's mostly there as an absorption pad. I couldn't say that quickly. Okay, last step. We want to get this glued. Don't get oil on the pan or the pad. Now, what are we going to do? I'm going to use the remainder of my Duco cement, and then I've got my other. These are both contact cements. What am I doing? This is dry. I'm just going to take and I'm just going to start putting some of the cement around where I know that the new pad is going to go. And again, you don't have to flood this thing because this cement is very strong. It's not super glue. This is kind of an old school glue. It is not water-based. Now, some people might try using a water-based glue. I have never had luck with water-based glues when it comes to gluing to things like metal. I'm not so much worried that they would cause rust. This piece of metal is actually coated. Now, I'm just going to simply make sure you have it lined up right. Okay, I've got the glue on there, and that really should be enough. We just want it to anchor and stay put, and we really should not have any issues with this moving. And once you've got it lined up, of course, you can just press it. You know, you don't need to put a heavy object on it. Just press it with your hand. And this stuff dries. I'm not going to put it back in the machine today. I'll let it dry overnight. It probably could dry in the machine once I reinstall it. Now, let's see. If you want to know whether you have gotten it, lined up properly, look on the other side. Now, there's a slight overlap here and here, but that's okay. I can trim this. Once it dries, I can go back behind it and trim it, or I can actually just install it. It really should fit. If it's too much of an overlap, you can trim it. But there you go, guys. That's how you restore the drip felt on a Singer 301. The same procedure would apply to any of the Singer Slantomatics, the 400 series, 500, maybe the 600 series. I'm not sure about those. And this will be going back on, and we should now be ready. Once this installs, we'll be ready to go ahead and start stitching with our now overhauled and ready for a new client, Singer 301A. Thanks for watching, everyone. I've been doing this procedure here for years and never thought to do a video on it, so I hope that was helpful. And if you have questions or comments, just leave them in the comments section below the video.